and welcome back to TikTok Tuesday. So today's episode is about everyday difficulties that somebody with Tourette Syndrome faces. I'll go ahead and start by saying that I came up with the majority of what I have listed. Some of it is from the reference that I put down below. I always put my references. But most of it I just came up with on my own because I was like, oh yeah, this is pretty normal for me. But I hear the same thing from others as well. So I'll start off with school because Tourette syndrome is a childhood onset neurological disorder. So that age 5 to 18 or 4 to 18, you're going to be in school. So that's a critical development period on like what's going to happen. So starting with concentration, I know other kids they get distracted. Obviously, something catches their eye or they just don't want to listen in class. When another child in the class has tics, it's going to be harder for those students to focus. And the child with tics is going to have a hard time focusing as well. They can get not only easily distracted by their tics, but by people. Maybe there's, what's it called? Just awareness of the students looking at you, and you can set like a sensation, like a sense that you feel them like looking at you or judging you. Self-conscious, you can feel self-conscious. And suppressing your tics in response to that can make it worse, make it harder to concentrate because then you're concentrating on suppressing your tics rather than the lesson of the day. Another one would be misunderstanding from students and teachers. Now, it's hard making friends can be pretty hard for someone who's different, especially when, they're still figuring out themselves in any situation. But with Tourette syndrome, kids can be mean. Kids can be very understanding, but it sometimes takes a while. With teachers, it can be worse. With teachers, a lot of times they'll just think that it's a child acting out. So just disbelief, I guess, would be the easiest thing, or just not being able to handle it or pay attention themselves during the lesson that they're teaching. And like I said, with kids, teasing and pointing, staring, getting made fun of, isolating can be pretty hard. So that's difficulty with a child with Tourette syndrome. And all of this can just stir up stress and anxiety, and any like stressors or heightened anxieties can make tics worse. So in turn, it makes the person it's harder to control and feel worse. As for homework and tests, just like stress. The stress of trying to remember what you learned in class. And if you were trying to suppress your tics and you don't remember what you were learning, that's going to make it harder to do your homework. And if you don't know your homework and you don't know how to study for your tests, or it's hard to study for your tests because of stress, it's going to make it harder in class to take your tests. And if you can't take your test in another area where you're not distracting others or being distracted, then it's going to be hard as well for everybody in the situation. So that's a difficulty that we face. Just overall stress is the biggest one, to be quite honest. Reading and writing for some kids, hand and eye tics can do that. For me, I know I flex my fingers a lot, so it's this one. Sometimes it's this one. I'm right-handed, so usually I'm pretty okay, but still I'll like pull my finger back on the desk and bang the desk a lot. I'm in college. I'm about to not be in college anymore. I'm about to graduate. But in class, sometimes people would notice, even though I put a disclaimer out to all of my colleagues. I was like, hey, I have Tourette syndrome, so yeah, sorry. So they're very understanding, like nobody really cared. But they would sometimes notice I'd be banging my fist on the table and makes it hard to write, and then I'm like sore and I have to make it even because of OCD. Anyway, and I'm also eye twitches, so it's hard to read or pay attention to something. For me, personally, I still can't differentiate if this is OCD or Tourette's, but I will adjust my focus all the time. And I've done that since I was little, where I would go in and out of focus on different things, and sometimes I would shift the way I'm looking. I look crazy at something, or I'll look aside and not be looking at someone in the eye while I'm talking, and then they'll be like, what are you looking at? And I'm like, oh, nothing. I'm just like changing my vision. So that can be a difficulty in class when you're having trouble reading or paying attention to what the teacher's writing on the board. And anger management. kids can be cruel. I mean, they can be. And it's hard, especially when you have rage or ODD, oppositional defiant disorder, or conduct disorder, CD. It's hard to control your anger in class, and then, you let it out, or you have a rage fit, or, you get in trouble from it. It can make your tics worse, and then it's harder to even consult your peers or your teachers about what just happened. So that's mainly everyday difficulties in like a school setting. As far as family life, really the main difficulty at first is going to be like understanding and getting used to it. After that, sometimes it can be like try to control your tics when we go out in public. I read one article that was, I think it was conducted in 2015 or 2016 in Madrid, Spain, where it's interesting because it's a different area of the globe, and so you get a feel of how Tourette syndrome is viewed. It's interesting, and there's a lot more shame and a lot more misunderstanding, and a lot of times what you'll see is parents saying, "Now make sure you don't do this in school. Don't tic. Don't make those noises. Control yourself, while you're at school or while you're in public." So sometimes that can be an issue when it comes to family life. But yeah, anyway, after that, so I didn't know if I heard a bell ring. I'm at the University of Montebello, and every hour the bell tolls. Anyway, so going out in public can be a big difficulty because nobody knows you. If you're around strangers, they don't know you. People stare, people laugh, people point, people whisper. I mean, there's just a misunderstanding, or people are going to be angry at you if you're screaming obscenities or just making noises in general. And yeah, it can just be hard, and then you're embarrassed, and it's just a whole spiral out of control. After that, overstimulation. This can kind of go in with, kids or adults, adolescents with Tourette syndrome. Sensory processing disorder, I said, is a comorbid disorder with Tourette syndrome, but also you don't even have to have sensory processing disorder to have some sensory issues. So overstimulation of your surroundings, or when your tics are bad enough and it's getting overwhelming for you and maybe for others around you as well, it can be a difficulty. Feeling like a burden is a really big one, to be quite honest. Personally for me, maybe not for everybody, but for me, I felt like a burden because I would feel like an outcast and feel like I'm just annoying everybody, and like, can you please leave? Sometimes that can be a real difficulty until you start coming to terms with it and feeling okay, and you stop feeling sorry for yourself. I finally learned how to do that. It's great. You should try it. Making friends. Like I said, kids, it takes some time to make friends. And even like as an adult, I fear that people will look at me weird, and I'm sure they do. But even as an adult, I struggle with that. That got kind of personal. Anyway, so yeah, the next one I have is injury. And I don't think I've seen this much in many articles that I've read. But like self-harm and non-intentional self-harm is something. So I used to, I still kind of do, hit my chin right here, hit my lip, hit my head, and it hurts. It's not to a point where it's like you see bruises or anything, unless there's like something like under my skull or something. I hope not. But I would bang my head against the wall, like very particular part right here on top of my head. It's very specific, like it has to hit right for that tic to complete. And that hurts after a while. Yeah, like I said, banging on the desk with my fist can hurt. Hurting others is a big difficulty. I would much rather hurt myself than hurt others with like my tics. So luckily that has not happened, but sometimes I'll hit my thighs, I'll smack my face, clench my teeth together. It hurts. It's not fun. After that, work situation. So after, you get your high school diploma, or you get your GED, or you don't finish high school at all and you want to get a job, you don't go to college, or if you do go to college, whatever the situation is, getting a job can be very difficult with Tourette syndrome. I have not ever told anybody in an interviewing process that I have Tourette syndrome, because legally you cannot fire someone because of their disability, but it doesn't say anything about not hiring someone. That's easy to get around. It's very easy to get around. You could just tell the person, we decided to go in a different direction, or maybe they found someone more qualified, maybe. I have never told anybody until after I was hired, and maybe I shouldn't do that, but I had one of my superiors a few months ago to tell me, yeah, and if I were you, I wouldn't. It was a little interesting to hear, to be quite honest. I feel like I disagree a little bit, but at the same time, I wasn't going to do it anyway. But that can be hard, getting a job, maintaining a job. Like I said, you can sue. It's not legal to fire someone because of their disability, their gender, their race, their ethnicity, age. Well, I don't know about age. I think there's a retirement age, but you know what I mean. It's discrimination, so you can't do that. And if you do, you can file for a lawsuit. I don't know too much into the legal stuff, though, so I'm not going to get too deep into that. Coworkers might keep their distance, or they just don't want to interact with you. Misunderstanding, and just people not being able to understand, or they're annoyed with you. That can happen. And if you can't get a job, eligibility for disability. Now, like I said, I'm not going to get into the legal stuff, but that's a huge struggle for some people. Luckily, I don't have to apply for disability, but some people do, because their Tourette's or their tics are way too debilitating to maintain a job. And sometimes that can be for a good reason. If you, like I said, if you have a punching tic, or if you drop things a lot, or if you drop to the ground, or hit yourself, or rip things, punch. Sometimes there's a reason, and I understand that. The last one I have on here is exhaustion. Anytime anyone is so what is it like having Tourette syndrome? And it's exhausting is the first thing I would say. And probably the biggest, I'm used to it. I've been used to it, but it can get very exhausting, especially when stressors pile up, when routines change, holidays are coming around, things are happening, it's excitement and stress all at once. And sometimes, just a lot of different feelings and emotions and things happening, and that can make tics worse, and it's exhausting. And with that, sometimes you can have trouble calming down, trouble sleeping, trouble talking to people, trouble getting your words out. That one happens with me a lot. But yeah, these are just some of the everyday difficulties. Most of them I came up with. I'm going to take credit for that. Some of them I took from the article that I referenced below. But before I end this episode, I am about to end the series. So I know you can stop crying. I'm sorry. But I thought that it's time to take the series and close it, because it was supposed to be a mini IGTV series, and I can't do it forever, but I'm still gonna be involved with the Tourette community, always will. So I will see y'all next week, I promise. Hoping to do a Q&A. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna post on my Instagram story a Q&A. If you don't want to ask me directly, with your name showing so I know who you are, you can do it anonymously, and I will put that in the Instagram story. I would love to answer questions. That's something I love doing the most. With my last presentation, I did it on Tourette syndrome and how it impacts everybody in a family dynamic, and it was very interesting. I had a lot of people ask me questions, and I loved that part, that interaction. So please ask me questions or tell me something. I don't care. Say whatever you want. And I will get back to y'all, probably not next week, but maybe the week after that. I'm about to graduate, so that's all I can think about right now. I'm so excited. Cum laude, I hope. Yeah, I think so. All right, well, like I said, I will see y'all next week. Bye.